Rabbi Leider of Chabad at University City. We're going to be learning a sikha from the Lubavitcher Rebbe that was said on Shabbos, Parsha Masai, on 1987, the 28th of Tammuz. The Rebbe used to speak every Shabbos Mevorchim. Shabbos Mevorchim is, of course, the Shabbos that we read, that we bless the new month. Before every Rosh Chodesh, we say a special prayer, which we bless the new month of the coming month, and we call the Shabbos Mevorchim. It's a very auspicious time. The Rebbe used to give a farbrengen of a gathering, and thousands of people would come and watch him and listen to him as he expounded words of Torah and ideas of the Parsha, and very often some contemporary issues as well. It was done every Shabbos Mevorchim, without fail. The service finished usually around 12 o'clock, and then people would quickly go home and have a bite to eat, and they would come back at 7:70, the main shul at 1:30 for the farbrengen. The farbrengen would last usually almost until sunset, or 5 o'clock, depending on when sunset was, usually around 5, 6 o'clock. And it was interrupted by singing and l'chaim, so people would come up to the Rebbe with special requests. It was a very beautiful experience. I attended personally many of those farbrengens. Anyways, in this particular Shabbos, the Rebbe talked about the idea of what is Shabbos Mevorchim. This Shabbos, we have several important ideas going on. Number one, it's Shabbos Mevorchim Av. It's the Shabbos that we bless in the month of Av. Rosh Chodesh is this coming Wednesday, and the Rosh Chodesh Av is auspicious in that it is the beginning of a period called the 9 days, which are the 9 days before Tisha B'Av. And during the 9 days, we don't eat any meat, and many of our activities are very much curtailed. We don't go swimming or bathe during the 9 days unless we're very dirty. Some people only bathe, take a shower in cold water, and only on Friday. Others bathe, our Chabad customers to bathe in hot water on Erev Shabbos. But there are different customs. Many people do not. You're not supposed to wear clean clothing, so you try on your clothing before Rosh Chodesh, so that when you're putting on new shirts or new pants, you are not wearing brand new laundered clothing, but clothing that has been washed, that has been worn before. So there are different customs about that. You should consult the Code of Jewish Law and consult your own personal customs as you do in your community. But it's an auspicious time. It's the beginning of a very sad period before Tisha B'Av, before the 9th of Av, which would commemorate the destruction of the temple. So it's Shabbos Mevorchim. What does Mevorchim mean? For the word Baruch, it means blessed. It's Shabbos Mevorchim is the Shabbos that we are blessed. And what is the blessing? The blessing is that we have a new month coming up, and with the new month comes all kinds of blessings and wonderful opportunities. You would think that the Shabbos Mevorchim of Av would be a very sad time, because the month of Av, the beginning of the month of Av, is quite sad, commemorating the destruction of the temple. But in reality, Shabbos Mevorchim is a very happy time. In fact, on Shabbos Mevorchim in Shul, we do not recite Av HaRachamim in the beginning of Musaf. Av HaRachamim was a very sad time, where we remember people who were killed and who were martyred and things like that. So we don't say that, because enough sadness is enough. So we don't do it, right? Because Shabbos Mevorchim, in certain respects, is actually a holiday. It's a holiday. It's a semi-yontif, because it's giving the blessing and the new month, the blessings and all types of things like that. It's also Shabbos Mevorchim Av. What is the significance of Shabbos Mevorchim Av? The month of Av, actually in the Torah, we do not bless it as Shabbos Mevorchim Av. We bless it as Menachem Av, the Av of consolation. The Av of consolation. The word Menachem means to be consoled after the destruction of the temple. According to the Book of Eicha, one of the names of Mashiach is actually Menachem, because he will be the one who will comfort us. So it's Shabbos Mevorchim Av. So Shabbos Mevorchim is very joyous. Av tends to be more in the sad time, Although Av also has a very auspicious time to it. We know that in Judaism there are auspicious months and inauspicious months. Auspicious months are Tishrei, with the holidays, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, and Kostar come out. Very auspicious, wonderful month. The month of Kislev, where Hanukkah comes out, and Hasidim celebrate Yud Tes Kislev, the anniversary of the liberation of the Alter Rebbe from prison. So Kislev is called Chodesh HaGeula by the Hasidim, the month of redemption. It's a very happy month. The month of Adar, Mishanichnas Adar Marbim B'Simcha, when Adar comes, happiness increases. Of course, Purim takes place during Adar, so it's a very happy time. And Nisan, when Pesach comes up. So that month also, for much of Nisan, we don't say Tachanun during the month of Nisan, because Tachanun is a sad prayer. So these are many different special months. Months that are inauspicious are the month of Cheshvan, which comes out after Tishrei, since there's no holidays during any of Cheshvan. It's considered a sad month. Many people do not get married during the month of Cheshvan because they're sad, because there's no holidays. The month of course, the month during the county of the Omer are also sad months. You have part of Nisan, well, considered part of Pesach, but Iyar and Sivan are considered fairly sad months, except the beginning of Sivan is, of course, Shavuos, so it's a happy time. Then you have the month of Av. Av is interesting in that the first part of Av is sad because we're commemorating the destruction of the temple. But after Tisha B'Av, it is actually a very auspicious month. Why is it? Why is Av such a happy month towards the end? Because Tu B'Av, the 15th of Av, comes out, and it's a day that the Talmud tells us that many shidduchim, many matches were made during Tu B'Av, and the boys and the girls would go out in the fields and pick each other, and there was all kinds of wonderful celebrations as a result of that, many, many weddings, and it was a wonderful time. So actually, when we consider the month of Av as a sad day, that's only the first half of the month. But the second half of the month is extremely happy. So that would explain why we give a big blessing to the month of Av, for two reasons. First, because we hope and pray that God should rebuild the Beis HaMikdash, rebuild the temple, and that itself should be a big bracha for everybody, the coming of Mashiach. And also because the second half of the month, when shidduchim were made, and we hope and pray, we need a bracha from God that we should have lots of shidduchim, that our children get married, and we should have lots of nachas from our children in that respect as well. So we see the connection between Shabbos Mevarchim and the Shabbos Mevarchim of Av connected with all of them. Actually, Shabbos Mevarchim is something we celebrate every year, when we bring blessings into the new month coming up. And whether the new month is a sad month or a happy month, it's still infused on this Shabbos with brachas, with blessings. And why is that? Because it's Shabbos. And when Shabbos comes, blessings increase in the world. So when Shabbos Mevarchim comes, it is indeed a very special occasion. People should celebrate, and people should make farbrengens, gatherings during this time, and sing, and share good words of Torah. The Rebbe, these are all parts of what the Rebbe was talking about. It says here, Tisha B'Av itself presents an extreme antagonistic power. Its negative forces have been with us for nearly 2,000 years, since the destruction of the Second Temple. And in fact, each year, they reassert themselves in the Talmudic dictum, which says if a temple is not rebuilt in a generation, then it is as if it had been destroyed in that generation, for they did not repent. That's from the Gemara. The Talmud Yerushalmi says that every year that the temple is not rebuilt, it's a tragedy for the Jewish people. So observing Tisha B'Av has meaning in that regard. So similarly, the intensity of Tisha B'Av, tragedy, representing 5 major tragic events in our early history, as well as many more, till modern times, certainly underscores the negative power inherent in Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av is not a happy day. And the week before Tisha B'Av, which we call Shavuot, the week that Tisha B'Av falls, carries with it all of the sadness, oppression. In many respects, it's very similar to Shloshim that we observe, the 30 days we observe after a person passes away, mourning for close relatives. Interestingly, in the world today, especially in the Orthodox world, they go crazy over Tisha B'Av. Every year there's a new booklet of keynotes, of prayers which are said, new thoughts from rabbis about Tisha B'Av. If you take a look at the Art Scroll Library or Feldheim or any of the major publishers, you'll see during this time period many books, publications about Tisha B'Av. The latest translation for keynotes and for the book of Eicha, of Lamentations that we read on Tisha B'Av. Every year there's a new book. The only organization that is conspicuously absent from all of that stuff is Chabad. In fact, there is not one Chabad translation of Eicha. Very interesting. You would think Chabad translated everything. They translated Slichos, they translated the Siddur, and everything. Why is there no Chabad translation of Eicha? Why is it that Chabad does not have so many books and ideas dealing with Eicha and dealing with Tisha B'Av and things like that? The answer is, we are just not into Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av is not a Chabad holiday. It's not our favorite holiday of the year. It just isn't. We're into Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur even. And Yom Kippur is a yontif. Our sins are forgiven. We're into Pesach and Shavuot. But Tisha B'Av, not our holiday. We're happy. There's a very beautiful story of the Regina Rebbe, who one day came into his Beis Medrash, into his study hall, and he saw, and the students had taken a pail of water, and when the Rebbe himself walked into the study hall, you know how those things sometimes work, the pail of water fell on the Rebbe's head. Right on the Rebbe's head. Can you imagine that? To the holy Regina Rebbe, who's one of the great tzaddikim, one of the great followers of the Maggid of Mezrich, they threw water all over him. And he looked at his students, this was on Tisha B'Av day, he looked at them, and he was furious. And he said, you know what, everybody? Since I see that no one has any respect for this day, I'm going to pray that God should take it away. That's what we would like. We would obviously like God to take away Tisha B'Av. So by spending so much emphasis on it, God's not going to take it away. God's going to say, hey, you know what? These Jews really are into Tisha B'Av. They really like it. So we are not really into it. Now it's also Shabbos. It's also the Shabbos that we read the Torah portion of Matos Masai, which are the last parshas of the book of Bamidbar. Next week we'll be reading Sefer Devarim. And Matos Masai, the Rebbe points out, interestingly, has a very special lesson attached to it. And especially its connection to Shabbos Avarchim and Achav. The word matos means staff or a stick. You know, each of the tribes, the leaders carried with them a staff, a stick that they would carry around with them. And the staff had on it the name of that particular shevet, the particular tribe. In fact, one of the words for tribes in Hebrew, shevet, means a staff or a stick. But the second parsha is Masai, which means travels. And it recounts the 42 travels of the Jewish people in the desert. So what does matos mean? Mata is a staff. A staff is something which is straight and totally inflexible. It does not bend. You can only break a staff. It does not bend. Masai, on the other hand, represents flexibility and movement. As the Jewish people traveled throughout the desert, from Egypt to Eretz Yisrael, they moved around and they traveled and they experienced different experiences as they traveled around, and there are many different things that happened to them on their way. So this seems to be a contradiction. Amata is something which is inflexible, and Masai is something which is very flexible. So the Rebbe points out that this represents two different types of our avodah to Hashem, two different parts of our service to Hashem. On one hand, a Jew needs to be inflexible. A Jew cannot bend with the times or move with the times. We need to have our strength to us, our stamina, and when the world tells us we should change and we should evolve and we should drive on Shabbos and we should eat non-kosher food and things are different, we are reminded of the famous words of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe when he came to America, and he said, America is not different. That just as we need to be a good Jew in Europe or Russia, we need to be steadfast and maintain our Judaism here as well. And certainly we know, as Orthodox Jews, especially in Chabad, we have been challenged throughout the many years that maybe we should be more flexible. I'm reminded of the who is a Jew issue, when the Rebbe came out strongly encouraging only recognizing Orthodox conversions, that he felt that non-Orthodox conversions would tear apart the very fabric of the Jewish people and lead to all kinds of breaking down of all kinds of standards and unity, especially unity of the Jewish people, that no one would recognize each other. Is he a Jew? Is that person a Jew? Who recognizes that person? I don't recognize him. You do recognize him. It would be totally chaos. The Rebbe felt very much that we need to have, in certain respects, like conversion, you need to have a strict, uncompromising standard in that regard. And a lot of our people, especially a lot of our supporters, didn't like that. They were very much opposed to that, because perhaps their children were marrying non-Jews. But they felt that we should recognize Reforming conservative conversions and things like that. And the Rebbe was steadfast. But the Rebbe was not steadfast in a lot of things. He had campaigns. He initiated campaigns that were remarkable and very unusual. You know, the mitzvah tanks, the mitzvah mobiles are very well known in the streets of many major cities. And the sukkah mobiles and the matzah bakeries and shofar factories and all of these things which were never done in Jewish history before. We never did this, but the Rebbe recognized the fact that in the modern era, where Jewish people are confronted with television, with the internet, with all kinds of new innovations, we need to be innovative also. We need to use technology to spread Judaism. And therefore the Rebbe was very flexible as far as allowing these things. Now I remember when the Farbrengens started to be televised on TV, first by satellite antenna, when we started getting dishes, and then later on regular TV programs. And many rabbis came along and they were very much opposed to that. They said, TV is not a Jewish medium. It's not appropriate for the Lubavitcher Rebbe to teach Torah on such a treifa medium, such a non-kosher medium. And they asked the Rebbe, is it permissible? Should we do it? And the Rebbe said, yes, it should be done. Because a lot of people watch TV, and you're going to be able to attract a lot of people through TV, through the medium of Zoom, as we're doing this broadcast as well. And you can reach a lot of people using the means of modern technology to do these things. So it's really an incredible thing. So anyways, there's a time that we need to be inflexible, but we can't budge, we can't change in many respects. But on the other hand, we need to be flexible. How do we know when to be inflexible and when to be flexible? So the answer is the halacha, the Torah instructs us in when we're supposed to be flexible and when we are supposed to be inflexible. Many people complain that our synagogues separate men from women. and they don't want to be separated. They want to sit with their wife, with their daughters, with their children. And here we said the Chabad rabbis say, I'm sorry, we don't allow that. We have a mechitza. The men have to be on one side of the mechitza. The women have to be on the other side of the mechitza. Do I like that? No, I hate that. I really don't like that. In fact, if I had my choice, we would not have a mechitza. But I don't have my choice. My choice is dictated to by halacha, by Jewish law. Jewish law says a mechitza is the definition of a Jewish synagogue. A Jewish place of prayer must have a mechitza. There's no flexibility in this regard. Well, you can decorate the mechitza, that you can do. You can make the mechitza higher, sometimes a little bit lower. And there are all kinds of creative ways of putting the mechitza in the shul, having the women on one side, the men on the other, or whatever it may be. Then in Europe, they had balconies. They put the women in the balcony so the women could see everything and hear everything. And many synagogues to this day put balconies in synagogue. But a mechitza is a mechitza. There's no flexibility as far as the actual essence of putting a mechitza in. So we need to know when to do this and when to do that. Our sages tell us that there is no mitzvah to be strict. None whatsoever. Sometimes a rabbi is asked a question and he doesn't know the answer to that question. So he'll say, machmir, strict. Go strict with it. But in reality, maybe he can go lenient. How does he know when to go lenient and when to go strict? So again, the Torah, the halacha, the Shulchan Aruch, the Kollel Jewish law instructs us. And it tells us when we can be strict and when we can't be strict. There's an expression in halacha, koyach dehetira adif, that the power of a leniency is greater, is more important. Because anybody can say, usher, forbidden. Anybody can say that. If you're not sure, usher, forbidden, don't do it. But it takes learning, it takes knowledge to be able to say mutar, it's permitted. That is a harder decision to make. And a rabbi needs to be more learned in order to make a decision that something is mutar. The Rebbe continues, and he says, when matos and masai are combined, as they are this year, the strength of matos, of inflexibility, takes on the progressive movement of masai, so that the steadfastness and strength grows stronger and stronger. At the same time, the steady growth in matters of holiness attains an aspect of strength. And even those aspects of Jewish life which represent only custom or greater piety are also invigorated and empowered. So we find that even customs, Jewish customs, which are not based in fact on Jewish law, but they're simply a custom. During this time they can also be inflexible. A custom is a custom. People very often will come to me and say, Rabbi, is this a custom or is it a law? And I will answer them that it depends. It depends on your background, where you're from. It depends on your level of Jewish observance, how lenient we can become. And it depends, of course, on the answer of halakha itself. But ultimately, a custom is a very important thing. Now, in many communities, like ours, like in Chabad, we have many customs. We have, in fact, a book, Sefer Tavi Haminhag in Chabad, the Sefer Chabad customs, the reason for those customs. And in the book of customs, it explains clearly why we do this, why we do that. And for a true chassid, they don't want to know, how can I get away with it? Or why, Rabbi, give me a loophole that I don't have to keep that custom. The customs for us are very, very precious and very, very important for us. And we try our very best to live within the bounds of the Chabad customs as they were passed down to us from the Rebbeim in days of old. But there are some customs that are not really customs. They are what we call in French, bubamaises. What is a bubamaisa? It's an old wives' tale. Nothing personal against wives, but it's an old tale. For example, there is a custom not to eat fish with dairy. And if you're having fish, you should not have cheese with it. You should not have cheese with it. So, it's a Jewish custom. It's an old Jewish custom. Is it a law? No. There's no law that you can't eat dairy and fish together. Or for that matter, fish and meat together. No law whatsoever. The Code of Jewish Law, interestingly, says that it's an old wives' tale. In fact, there is no such custom. How did it come about? It came about because people were afraid of mixing the two. Perhaps because of the bones of fish mixing together with dairy products or mixing together with meat, you could choke on them. So perhaps for that reason, they made such a custom that you shouldn't eat dairy with meat, or shouldn't eat dairy with fish, or dairy with or fish with meat. So that's become a custom. Today, in fact, we follow that custom. Interestingly, even though the Code of Jewish Law says it's an old wives' tale, but we follow that custom. For example, on Shabbos, first we eat fish, and then we have something to eat, like some bread, or make a l'chaim and some liquid, and clear our mouth, rinse our mouth out, and then we have our meat meal. We do that, and we don't even eat on the same plates or the same forks. We clear the table for these things before we eat the meat. No halacha whatsoever that brings that down. None whatsoever. Similarly, to eat fish with milk and with cheese is also a custom that we many people follow today, but many don't. For example, if you want to put anchovies, which is a fish, on your pizza, kosher pizza shops will definitely do that. But it's a custom. No, it's not a. It's a false custom. It's not a true, real custom. So people follow it, but it's not really a custom. Many years ago, we had a young girl who lived with us, who was a teacher at our school, and one night, my wife made a salmon quiche. Salmon quiche had in it fish, salmon, and it also had cheese in it. Cheese. And the young lady would not eat it. Why? Because she came from a Chabad family in Brooklyn, and they didn't eat fish with dairy. And I kept telling her, I would say to her, Rachale, you can eat it. There's nothing wrong with it. It's only an old wives' tale. You can eat it. She said, in my house, we didn't eat it. I just can't eat it. We've never had dairy and fish. I said to her, you know what, Rachel? Call your father. Her father was a shaykhut, and he was a very learned person. He was a Talmud Chacham. He was an expert in Jewish law. And I said, call him and ask him. So she called him, and I'm listening on the phone, Then she hung up. I said, what did he say? He said, actually, there's nothing wrong with it. Oh, I said, you see? Nothing wrong with it. She said, but, he said, we don't eat it. Okay. There you go. That's inflexibility for you. But flexibility at the same time. So the actual prohibition, though, is milk and fish, not cheese and fish. But that's another story. Anyways, the Rebbe continues that this is now an auspicious time because it is the 3 weeks before Tisha B'Av, as we mentioned earlier. There are several important practices which should be encouraged, the Rebbe said, during the 3-week period so as to neutralize the situation we're in. Because of our sins, we were exiled from our land. Now, most people, especially in the Orthodox community, emphasize the prohibitions of the 3 weeks, and especially of the 9 days after Rosh Chodesh. Not to to eat meat during the 9 days, not to bathe, not to do this, not to do that. In Chabad, we don't really, we observe these things, but we don't really emphasize them. We're more interested in something else. We're so interested in something else. We are interested in solving the problem. The problem is the temple was destroyed. We're in Golus. What can we do about it? How can we solve that problem? That's what I'm really interested in. And how do we go about doing it? We don't go about doing it simply just by fasting and mourning and walking around dirty all the time, no music. We do it in a very practical, real way. And let's go over some of those very important areas of Torah and mitzvahs that we say will cause the temple to be rebuilt, which is something we all want. As it says, Sion b'mishpat tipada, v'shaveh b'tzedakah. Sion, Zion, which means Eretz Yisrael, Yerushalayim, will be redeemed through justice, and her returnees, the captives who left, will be redeemed through acts of charity. So really, that's what we want to do. How can we redeem ourselves? How can we return back to Eretz Yisrael? How can we bring Mashiach? That's the question. And for that, that's something we should all be very interested in. So first of all, we should increase certain important things in our life. Torah study. Torah study includes justice, meaning the laws of Torah, and especially the laws relating to the Beis Hamikdash. When it says Torah, it means teachings and halacha, Jewish law. As it says, Sion will be redeemed through justice. Torah is from the expression hora'ah, which means a teaching, and it refers to halacha, Jewish law. So it's customary during this time, excuse me, that we should increase Torah learning. We should study the laws of Geula and of Mashiach and of the building of the Beis Hamikdash. We have a custom in Chabad that every day, thank you.
Amen.
We have a custom that throughout the 3 weeks, we study the laws dealing with the building of the Beis Hamikdash. At the same time, one very good book to use is the Rambam. The Rambam's books dealing with Hilchos Beis HaBechira, the laws dealing with the Beis Hamikdash. Which the Beis Hamikdash, one of the names of the Beis Hamikdash is Beis HaBechira, which means the house of the chosen house. He says at the same time, we should make siyumim. We should make organized conclusions and tractates of the Talmud during the 9 days, and also on the eve of Tisha B'Av, even the eve of Tisha B'Av, and the day of Tisha B'Av in the permitted time, and later on in the afternoon, when we're allowed to learn certain aspects of Torah. Now, again, in the world out there, they make a siyum so they can eat meat. Because if you have a siyum or you go to a bris, you're allowed to eat meat. Normally during the 9 days, we don't eat meat. But if a person celebrates the conclusion of a tractate of the Talmud that they finished studying, you're permitted to eat meat. Chabad has a different approach. Chabad said, we're not making a siyum in order to eat meat. That's very gashmias. That's very materialistic. We're making a siyum to increase our study of Torah. That's why we're really making a siyum. And Torah brings justice and peace to the world. That's what we're interested in. We're not interested in the meat part of it. We're interested in the justice part of it. We're interested in the goodness part of it, bringing holiness to the world. That is the part that we're really interested in. So therefore, in Chabad communities, many Chabad communities that have people who are studying Talmud regularly, they will, every day, somebody will make 1 or 2 siyums a day, different people, but they will not eat meat at the siyum. They won't do it. And I'm sure everybody in the outside community says, what's the whole point of it? They miss the whole point of it. The whole point of it is to increase the study of Torah. That's the point of it. Second, increase monetary charity, giving of tzedakah. As it says, tzedakah tatzam mimavis, tzedakah saves us from death, and tzedakah is an extremely important mitzvah which can redeem our souls. To love your neighbor as yourself, Yahavta l'recha kamocha, Avos Yisrael, love of your fellow, and strengthening Jewish unity. All of these things together happen when we give tzedakah. When we give tzedakah, we are telling God, listen, God, we're going to make a deal with you. We are going to help others, and we want you to help us. How do we want you to help us? By bringing Mashiach, by rebuilding the Beis HaMikdash, rebuilding the Holy Temple. That's what we really, really want. And we will give tzedakah to others, we will help others, and tzedakah is one of the only mitzvahs that you can actually expect a reward from it. So I'm going to give tzedakah, and I want God to do such and such for me. So giving tzedakah is something that can really help to bring Mashiach and really bring the redemption closer. Combining the two of loving your fellow as yourself and donating to charity together with study of Torah before your studies or in the midst of your studies, and involve others in the study. So a combination of giving charity together with study and prayer for that matter as well is very appropriate. It makes the study holier and more important. And therefore, it is appropriate, as the Rebbe points out, to have a pushka or several pushkas, tzedakah boxes, in our homes, in our businesses, in our cars. We should have a tzedakah box in our car. And interestingly, the Rebbe pointed out that we should affix a tzedakah box to the wall of our house someplace. In my house, in the kitchen, we have a tzedakah box that is attached to one of the walls of the kitchen. Why did the Rebbe want us to do that? Isn't a pushka good enough just to have it sit on the counter? Why does it have to be on the wall? And the answer, he says, is because when Mashiach comes, not only are we going to Eretz Yisrael, but our houses are going to Israel as well. We're going to be taking our houses with us to Israel. And certainly, if the house is associated with a mitzvah, it has Jewish books on the shelf, it has mezuzahs on the doorpost, it has Torah being studied in the house, then certainly the house itself is an object of godliness, and it will come with us to Eretz Yisrael. So by putting affixing a pushka on the wall of a house or one of the walls of our home, we can be assured that the home will accompany us to Israel. Third, also in the area of prayer, our actions should be intensified, especially in the prayers of redemption. We then have more of the three pillars in which the world stands. Torah, the study of Torah, avoda, which is prayer, and gemilas chasadim, which are acts of loving kindness. So these are the three pillars by which it says, Al Shloshet Dvarim Ha'olam Hamed, the world stands on these three pillars, and prayer is, of course, one of them. Interestingly, why three pillars? We know that a table usually has four pillars. It has four legs. But actually, most things can stand on three pillars. If they are positioned correctly, they can stand on three pillars. So the three pillars are the minimum. But less than that, you can't stand on it. So these are the three essential aspects that we emphasize, not only during the 3 weeks, but in every fast day and every sad occasion. We emphasize these three aspects. Torah, increasing in Torah study. Avoda, increasing our prayer. For this, by the way, it can be saying more Tehillim every day. Increasing our saying of Tehillim. Perhaps the Tehillim that we say each day, as it's divided up into the days of the month. And finally, of course, acts of Gemilas Chasadim, acts of loving kindness to each other, which is not only monetary loving kindness, but acts of loving kindness, going out and helping people, as Yoram very often goes out to the hospitals and gives food to people who are ill, who are waiting for these things. It's very important. So acts of kindness is not only monetary, but in many ways also. Also, interestingly, this Shabbos is Shabbos, as I mentioned before, Shabbos Chazak. So we finished reading the book of Bamidbar, of Numbers, and we begin reading the book of Devarim. And when we finish the last few words of the Parsha of Masai, everybody stands up, and the Balkari, the reader, he'll say, Chazak, Chazak, v'nis chazek, which means strength, strength, we should all be strong, and everyone repeats after him, Chazak, Chazak, v'nis chazek as well, that we should have strength as well. And what is the meaning for that? That we are going to study a new book of the Torah, we're going to start reading a new book of the Torah, of Devarim, and we should go into that book with the strength necessary. Now, a daily regimen of Torah study, as the Rebbe points out, is not necessarily such an easy thing to do. Our days are very, very busy. We're working, we have to spend time with the children, with the wife, and the husband, and we have work around the house to do. We're very, very busy with so many things. Along comes the Torah and tells us, God tells us, listen, you need to make time in your busy schedule each day for Torah study, because it's our lifeblood. A Jew without Torah is like a fish out of water. And we are told the famous story of Rabbi Akiva, how he was studying Torah, and his friend came to him and said, why are you studying Torah if the authorities, the Romans, have forbidden upon pain of death? In fact, later Rabbi Akiva ended up giving up his life for studying Torah. And Rabbi Akiva answered with a story, a mashal, a parable of a fish that was swimming around in the water, and a bigger fish was following after it, trying to eat it. And the fox came by and said to the fish, hey fish, I see that you're in danger. There's a big fish that wants to eat you. I'll tell you what, why don't you come out of the water and you'll be safe over here. And the fish said, I'll be safe? You'll eat me is what I'll be safe from. That's being safe. At least in the water, I might be eaten by the shark, but at least I have a chance of surviving. If I leave the water, for sure, I will have no chance at all. And indeed, a Jew believes the waters of Torah is doomed to spiritual death. And we find, in fact, interestingly, that the most learned of the Jews today are the Orthodox. They are definitely the most learned. They spend time learning, they go to yeshiva, they send their children to Jewish day school, and we are people who are fairly learned people. Certainly we can learn more, but we are quite learned. Our rabbis are experts in halacha, and we can count on them for the correct viewpoint. Unlike us, the more liberal viewpoints of Torah, of Judaism, are much less learned. They don't spend much time in their rabbinical school studying Talmud and halacha and Jewish law. They study stories and midrashim and things like that, which are very nice and important, but they don't really tell us how to live. And we need to know that. And therefore, among the more liberal branches of Judaism, you find a higher assimilation rate, a very high assimilation rate. While in the Orthodox community, it's much lower. Because in Orthodoxy, the Jews are more learned. They're more familiar with it. For them, Judaism is not something that we just do as a light pastime, but it's something that we take very, very seriously throughout the day. And each one of us, whether we are a layman or a rabbi or the greatest Torah scholar in the world, should should make resolutions to increase their Torah study, especially during this time of year, during the 3 weeks and during the 9 days before Tisha B'Av. And this is a very auspicious time. We have just finished the 40th anniversary of the conclusion of the study of the Rambam's Mishnah Torah, his monumental work. And communities all over the world that study Rambam every day, as I do and many of our community do, are celebrating this tremendous feat, where thousands, hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of Jews are celebrating the conclusion of this monumental work of the Rambam. And it's incredible. You see it. The Rambam wrote it in a language that people can understand, and there are English translations of it. It's really an incredible thing. So some of us, perhaps, who are not learning Rambam, maybe should make a resolution that they are going to start learning Rambam every day also. And there are 3 options for you. The first is, the ideal is 3 chapters a day. To study 3 chapters a day. And there are different guides that you can go online. You can see what the daily schedule of Rambam is every day. I go through Chabad.org or one of these things, and they'll tell you what 3 chapters we're studying today. 3 chapters is still a lot, though. If you're not able to do that, if it's difficult for you, you just don't have the time for that, so study 1 chapter a day. 1 chapter is also a sizable amount of study, but that is also a very good thing, and you'll finish that every 3 years. You'll finish the entire study of the Rambam every 3 years. Obviously, if you study 3 chapters a day, you will finish it in 1 year. 1 chapter a day, you'll finish it in 3 years, which is not a bad accomplishment. If that is difficult for you, study the Rambam Sefer HaMitzvahs, his book of the commandments. And by doing that, you will also have an incredible experience of understanding what is Judaism all about. We know there are 613 commandments in Judaism. Do we know what those 613 are? I don't know if many of you do. I have to be reminded of them myself many times. Today we don't observe 613. At least literally, we only observe about 80. So we're very limited. But it's important to know what they are. What are the mitzvahs? Exactly what are they? So the Sefer Mitzvahs can tell us that. In synagogues, it's a very good idea, maybe between Mincha and Marav in the evening or in the morning after davening, to recite the Sefer Mitzvah schedule for the day. It's also a very nice thing to do. So during these 3 weeks, we have our work cut out for us in the form of prayer, increasing our prayer, increasing our giving of charity during this time, which is very appropriate. If we give $1 a day, give $2 a day, whatever it may be, and increasing our study of Torah. Did I say that already? And increasing acts of kindness as well. Torah, Avoda, Gemilas Chasadim. And hopefully, God willing, that when we do that, and we pray to God with all of our heart and soul, then indeed, Tisha B'Av will be transformed from the saddest day of the year to the happiest day of the year. In fact, we do not recite Tachanun, the sad prayer of supplication, on Tisha B'Av, because Tisha B'Av is considered, in many respects, as a holiday, because we believe Mashiach will be born or conceived on Tisha B'Av, and Mashiach will come on Tisha B'Av. It will be a very, very happy occasion. That will be a tremendous day of celebration for us all. And may it be God's will that as we continue during this sad time, God himself should curtail the mourning, the sadness, when he sees the Jewish people acting in the right way and really dedicating themselves to Torah, Avodah, Gemilas Chasadim. And God willing, then, we will not be fasting on Tisha B'Av this year, but we will be eating a meal of Tisha B'Av, God willing, together with the Leviathan, the special fish that God has prepared for us on when Mashiach comes, the Shor Habor, the delicious meat that is ready for us and just waiting for us to put on the barbecue. And that is going to be the way we are going to be observing Tisha B'Av this year, God willing. Shalom, everyone, and have a good week and a good Shabbos.
Wow, beautiful.